Hey there everyone, Tangent back again once again with another Magic the Gathering Top 10 video. Last time I looked at some of the most expensive commons in all of Magic the Gathering, and I thought for this one I would take a look at the other end of the spectrum, the cheapest Mythic cards that you can currently afford. Normally when we think of Mythic rares, we think of powerful Magic cards with a wall of text on them that do a billion different things. This is true in many cases, particularly with the newest Omnath iteration from Zendikar Rising. He did it all. Added mana, drew you cards, did damage to things. That's why he had to be banned. Now I've set some ground rules for this list, just like on my previous one, and that is because very early on with my research for this list did I find that the entire top 10 was comprised of Commander 2019. This gave me an idea for another video later on, but that's for another day. I've also excluded cards from any unsets, particularly Infinity Elemental from Unsanctioned, as well as conspiracy cards Hymn of the Wilds and Sovereign's Realm. Now with that being said, let us crack on with this top 10 list of the cheapest Mythics in all of Magic the Gathering history, the cards that nobody ever wants at the back of their pack. Coming in at number 10, we've got Rowdy Crew from Ixalan. This rowdy dude is a 4-drop human pirate, 3/3 with trample, and when he enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards at random. If the 2 cards share a card type, then you put 2 1/1 counters on him. At a glance, this posse of pirates doesn't seem like they would be a cheap Mythic, unless you're counting being red and having a wall of text on them. Unfortunately, these silly scallywags come with what I like to call Tybalt syndrome, and that is when you are discarding your cards, you are forced to discard them at random, something that nobody wants to do, just ask anyone who's ever had a Hymn to Torok played against them. These rambunctious ruffians won't be costing you too many doubloons anytime soon, as they're only listed at 34 cents on the market. And although they've got a terminal case of Tybalt syndrome, I don't think they're the worst pickup in the entire world, and certainly not the worst on this list. Knocking on the door of number 9, we've got a duo of Dumpster Fire Mythics in Etched Monstrosity from New Phyrexia and Soul of Innistrad from Magic 2015. Both of these miserable Magic the Gathering cards have a market price of 33 cents, which is still too high considering the heavy costs associated with both of them. Starting with Etched Monstrosity, we've got a 10/10 for 5. Sounds delightful, doesn't it? It's an artifact creature, but then, oh no, you read some more. It enters the battlefield with 5 -1/-1 counters on it. There is some upside, although, that being that you can pay Wooburg, remove 5 -1/-1 counters from it, and then target player draws the card. It doesn't have to be you, but it probably should be. Now in the world of Rainbow Commander decks running rampant and throwing Ragers, this guy isn't even qualified to be the valet driver at that party. He's the dark and depressing younger brother of Etched Champion, the coolest guy at the party, former standard and modern staple. His running buddy is another Debbie Downer who would rather hiss at you than make conversation. I'm talking about Soul of Innistrad from Magic 2015. Soul of Innistrad is a 6/6 Death Touch for 4 and 2 black. He has 2 abilities, but they're basically the same ability, being that you can play 3 and 2 black to return up to 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. Now the Soul Cycle was introduced in Magic 2015 as a replacement to the Titan Cycle, and a Grave Titan this certainly is not. At the number 8 slot, we've got a card that I totally forgot even existed in Underworld Cerberus from Theros. Underworld Cerberus is a 6/6 for 3 and Rakdos. Can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities, and when Underworld Cerberus dies, exile it and each player returns all creature cards from his or her graveyard to his or her hand. Wow, that's a mouthful, but to be expected from a Mythic that has a lot of words on it, and why it's so cheap. That is because you can pick up your copy of Underworld Cerberus today for the market price of 31 cents. It just goes to show that having 3 heads does not make you 3 times as smart. Sliding in at number 7, we've got the slimy Duskmantle Seer from Gatecrash, or what Dark Confidant would look like if he discovered German heavy metal. Duskmantle Seer is a flying 4/4 for 2 and Rakdos. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player reveals the top card of his or her library, and then loses life equal to that card's converted mana cost and puts it into his or her hand. He's like a group Bob, but a bad Bob. Of all the cards on this list, I've got a soft spot for the Leatherbound Bob, being that he's actually got pretty decent stats and a pretty good ability. We all know that Bob effects hurt, and giving it to everybody isn't the worst thing in the world. We all love a little group love in our life, don't we? But all of that leather and love might be able to buy you happiness, but you can buy this copy of Duskmantle Seer with a market price of 30 whole cents. Another cheap mythic on the list at number 6, and one that I particularly enjoyed back in the day in Khans of Tarkir Standard. We're talking about Wingmate Rock here. And although today you can pick up a copy of Wingmate Rock for a market price of only 28 cents, this wasn't always the case. Back in the day, Wingmate Rock was a staple on the top end of Abzan aggro decks, something I was particularly fond of because I liked Siege Rhino and I was a D-Gen. Wingmate Rock is a 3/4 flying for 3 and 2 white. It has Raid, which is whenever Wingmate Rock enters the battlefield, if you attacked with a creature this turn, put a 3/4 white bird creature token with flying onto the battlefield. It also says that whenever Wingmate Rock attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking creature. Now it does hurt me to see this card as low as it is, considering I slung my fair share of them back in Standard, but I suppose, if you're a Rhino, you're right, and if you're a Rock, you're wrong. Flying in at number 5, we've got a fiery fart of a mythic in Akoum Firebird. Akoum Firebird is a 3/3 flying haste for 2 and 2 red. Akoum Firebird attacks each turn if able. It also has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 4 and 2 red. If you do, return it from your graveyard to your battlefield. Now we're all familiar with Phoenixes in Magic the Gathering and how generally awful they are. Although there have been some better ones printed in recent memory, this one does not make the cut. Now with those pedestrian stats and landfall just tacked onto it because lol Zendikar, we've got a card that'll only cost you 27 cents on the market. So before we could get to rekindling Phoenix and the fiery, fantastic festival of friendship that it was, we had to go through flameouts like Akoum Firebird. We're on the other side of the top 5 now, and this is where things took a turn for the worst, being that I had 6 cards clocking in at 25 cents. I like to call that the gumball price. That being because I think we'd all just rather put a quarter into a gumball machine and chomp on some blue raspberry than open any of these cards in our packs. But the worst of the worst, the kid sitting in the corner with the dunce cap on his head of the 25-cent club, we have Reap Intellect from Dragon's Maze. That's right, it wouldn't be a cheapest Magic the Gathering list without some mention of Dragon's Maze. From lazy card design to lazy set design, this card was the absolute pits, and currently you could buy every single card from that set individually for under $70, which in all honesty is about $50 too much. Now Reap Intellect is the only non-creature spell on this list. It's a sorcery for X, 2, and Dimmer. Now this card has a wall of text on it in the absolute worst way, and although I don't want to read it out loud, I guess I will for you guys. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose up to X non-land cards from it and exile them. For each card exiled this way, search that player's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that card and exile them. Then that player shuffles his or her library. Now this card didn't see any play in Standard, it sure didn't see any play in Modern, and if you're playing this in Commander, we need to have a serious talk. You're doing it wrong, son. Top 3 time now, and we're looking at a card that actually had a decent amount of hype and a hefty price tag when it was first revealed. I'm talking about Erebos' Titan from Magic Origins. Erebos' Titan is a 5/5 for 1 and 3 black. As long as your opponent controls no creatures, Erebos' Titan has Indestructible. Whenever a creature leaves an opponent's graveyard, you may discard a card, and if you do, return Erebos' Titan from your graveyard to your hand. Now Magic Origins was a pretty great set from what I can recall. It included this card having a bunch of hype around it, we got the flippy dippy planeswalkers out of it, and we got the wonderful amazing Hangerback Walker, because we ain't no Hangerback girl. Now Erebos' Titan tricked us by trying to be an improvement on the Soul Cycle from the year before, by having the gall to have the word Titan in its name, trying to compare itself to Grave Titan and the pretty Primeval Titan. But all would be for naught because his pre-order price of I think it was about $16 is now a far shade from his current price of 24 whole cents. How the mighty have fallen indeed. This poor giant went from being Cash of the Titans to the Crash of the Titans in record time. Trampling its way into number 2. Oh wait, it doesn't have trample? It has reach. Why does it have reach? It's green. Ugh. Coming in at number 2 because it can't reach number 1, we've got Soul of Zendikar from Magic 2015. Now we already mentioned Soul of Innistrad previously on this list, and now we've got the green version of the Deadhead Boy. Soul of Zendikar is a 6/6 with reach for 4 and 2 green, and like Soul of Innistrad, you can pay 3 and his 2 colors, this time being green, but he only puts a 3/3 green beast creature token into the battlefield, which is just so bad. The souls are just, they're so bad. I don't have any defense for this guy, and I don't know why he ever existed, but unfortunately, he's not the worst on this list. He's not even the cheapest. He comes in at a market price of 19 cents. 19 cents, friends. So it's just baffling to me that there's an even worse, even cheaper Mythic Rare in all of Magic the Gathering, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. Let's get on to number 1. Well, everybody, we made it to number 1. We have made it to the pinnacle of the bottom of the barrel. We are actually underneath the barrel. We have gone to China at this point, because coming in at number 1, we have got Soul of Ravnica. Soul of Ravnica is the blue variant of the Soul Cycle from Magic 2015, and he is a 6/6 flying for 4 and 2 blue. Now, he has abilities that are more expensive, but I think they're slightly better than all the other ones, in the fact that he is 5 and 2 blue to draw a card for each color among permanents you control. Now, the unfortunate thing for this guy is that his ability is more expensive, and he only really works in a rainbow deck, because paying 7 to draw 3 is not all that great. Heck, paying 7 to draw 5 is barely even good. Maybe he's not good, maybe he doesn't belong in any rainbow decks. I think I'm just wrong here. Regardless, he has a market price of 17 whole cents. That is half as expensive as our number 10 Rowdy Crew at 34 cents. You can get 2 of this garbage card for 1 of that garbage card. And you know what? There's something beautiful about that. I'm not sure what it is, I'm not much of a poetry man, but he is our number 1 card and the worst of the Soul Cycle. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below about this list. Cheap Mythics, they're everywhere, and I think these are some of the worst Mythics as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I've been Tangent, you've been awesome, and I'll catch ya.